charges that the deputy president is facing, if any of the charges is affirmed by the Senate, on that single charge, the deputy president will have been considered to have violated the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and the laws of the land, and that alone makes the deputy president to stand impeached by the Senate. So, as a matter of fact, we all fathom this fact that all the 11 grounds do not have to be affirmed by the Senate for Rigathi Gachagua to be impeached as Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Interesting. So just to get it right, for example, if you go back to Article 151B of the Constitution, it lists 3 grounds. So if he's guilty of gross violation of the Constitution or any law, then he goes, regardless.
Remember, Ashley, that when Rigathi Gachagua on the 13th, I think I do recall, September 2022, he took his oath of office. He said he will defend and protect the Constitution of Kenya, and he sought the help of God. Defend and protect. If he violates the Constitution that he affirmed to defend and protect, then he will be impeached on the basis not just of the oath that he took, but on the basis of Article 150 of the Constitution.
Okay. But I want us to now just go back to what we saw happen at the Senate earlier today. And we saw the lawyers and the legal team of the deputy president argue that he has a right to a fair hearing and a trial, which others might argue did not happen because the deputy president did not appear at the Senate when he was supposed to go to the floor of the House as a witness.
Actually, after 2 days of severing, the full majesty of legal and political drama in the Senate, we are seeing that tonight, the year of our Lord, the curtains are set to fall. And as we look at all this, in the closing hours of this entire process, the lead counsel of Rigathi Gachagua, Senior Counsel Paul Muite, argued that in the interest of justice, it is important that Senate gets to adjourn and give room for the deputy president to recuperate and recover if possible, to enable him appear before the Senate for purposes of being cross-examined. Remember, as we look at all this, the deputy president filed written submissions, including affidavits. All these are substantive and consequential. Now, when you look at Article 47 of the Constitution, and even matters that you are citing, the issue of fair trial. Fair trial is not just a theoretical issue in the Constitution. It is something that is properly sheltered and preserved by the Constitution. So, as a matter of natural justice, Rigathi Gachagua has to be heard, has to be represented, does not have to be condemned and heard. But what is the operational definition of the term heard in law? Heard does not mean just being in terms of sound bites and speaking out. By way of even his written submissions and affidavits, that is one way of submissions, and he will be heard, that will be considered. The other thing is appearing in person and voicing submissions to the affidavits and the written submissions that he made. The cross-examination could be a question of corroboration and him owning up the statements that he initially wrote. And so far I can argue that it is going to be a very interesting unfolding situation in the weeks ahead, how the counsel for Rigathi Gachagua, who stormed out of the Senate in protest, will perpetuate this issue of the right to be heard before the courts in the interest of Rigathi Gachagua, now that Senate is carrying forward or carrying on with the issue of impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, pursuant to the timelines and the mandate that falls upon the shoulders of the Senate by way of the Constitution and the standing orders.
Because that's what exactly the lawyers argued on, sub-Article 6 of Article 145. And it states that the Senate shall, after according the president, that in this case, the deputy president, an opportunity to be heard, vote on the impeachment charges.
Exactly. And that's why I said the issue of according or affording the right to be heard. So far, in the last 2 days, Senate has been hearing or listening to the charges by way of the National Assembly presenting the charges. We have had counsel for Rigathi Gachagua presenting themselves, remember from the opening statements, up to the time when it was announced that Rigathi Gachagua is now indisposed. So Senate has been listening to both sides. I can assure you that except for the 2 hours or 2.5 hours that were remaining to conclude the entire work of listening to the charges and the evidence and corroborating for purposes of substantiating any of the charges, Senate has done its best. And remember that even after the lunch break, Senate adjourned to make sure that counsel for Rigathi Gachagua avails their client for purposes of the cross-examination. In terms of matters procedure, Senate has done the timelines that it has to consider what is procedurally fair and just for Rigathi Gachagua. Of course, remember that the high power, the legislature, in this case the Senate, to consider its work within the framework of operation, which are the standing orders and the constitution of the land.
Okay. Well, what do you think will play out in the corridors of justice? Because taking a look at what the Deputy President's team did earlier on, up to 26 court cases were filed in the corridors of justice, and them walking out right after the senators decided not to extend this sitting to Saturday to give the Deputy President time to recuperate. What will the court say? There's some who argue that an impeachment in absentia is a flawed impeachment.
The worth of jurisprudence affirms that actually the corridors of justice are not static, they are elastic.
Okay.
And that's why the pronouncements of the courts and various judgments always expand the brackets of justice in the interest of justice for man or mankind. I do anticipate that in the days and weeks ahead, we are going to see an unfolding melodramatic scenes within the corridors of justice in Kenya, where counsel for Rigathi Gachagua will vociferously argue in the interest of Rigathi Gachagua that he was condemned unheard, and that actually Senate did not consider the fact that he is now suffering malady and his indisposition did not afford him an opportunity to be heard in person before the Senate. But question would be, and of course you've heard Senior Counsel James Orengo argue, that actually beyond the issue of the timelines, Rigathi Gachagua has made written submissions, has sworn affidavits, and even various witnesses. And remember that actually it is the National Assembly that stands prejudiced by failure to cross-examine Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President. Looking at all these, it affords Kenya the opportunity to expand jurisprudence on the issue that so far has remained untested on the issue of impeachment of a president or deputy president in the circumstances. So I think in the coming couple of weeks and days, we are going to see the courts trying to exercise their various jurisdictions in terms of discharging the authority, listening to the various grievances, and it will be exciting to see how Kenya, being a young and progressive democracy, is going to be forging forward on the frontiers of democracy and constitutional law on how the impeachment of a president or deputy president is going to be safeguarded within the annals of history, and how Article 150, for example, on the impeachment of a deputy president, even in future, is going to be looked at through the lenses of affording fair hearing and how the legislature can conduct procedurally the issue of impeachment of a deputy president.
Speaking of fair hearing, rather, it takes me back to what the Deputy President had to say about Justice Esther Minor, because he was quite critical of the fact that the judge apparently did not give him a chance to defend himself. So it's a little bit similar to what you anticipate might play out in the corridors of justice. Speaking about Judge Esther Minor, let's talk about that. Is it a personal vendetta against the judge for a ruling that wasn't made in the DP's favor? That was a case argued by the National Assembly's legal counsel. The DP side claimed he filed a complaint with the JSC, but equally he did launch a scathing attack in public. So does the Deputy President have the right to publicly criticize a judicial officer?
By seeming to exercise that right of the freedom of speech and expression, there is so much left that leaves a very bad taste in the mouth. That Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua belongs to one critical arm of government and very high ranking as a Deputy President. To venture into the space of the judiciary and attack the character and the person of a judge, it leaves a very bad taste in the mouth. And in fact, it's quite condescending. It demonstrates that Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua had little respect, not just for the judiciary, but even for a ranking member of the judiciary who is a judge. It leaves a very bad taste in the mouth. And in fact, when you appreciate the very import of separation of powers as a doctrine, it is important that each arm respects the other arm, because the walls of separation of powers are very high, a perimeter wall that must be respected. It is a very impregnable wall. And I think moving forward, it lends us a lesson, even for the political class, that even if you disagree with a member of the judiciary for a particular decision rendered while in the execution of their duty, it is important to respect them and respect the judiciary as well.
Okay, I understand the speaker is about to make an announcement, but as we wait for it, you know, we're on uncharted territory of the Constitution. From where you see it and looking at this process from the National Assembly to where we are, what precedents does it set?
You see, Ashley, I recall the words of Justice William Douglas in the decision of Griswold versus Connecticut, when he said, and I quote, that the Bill of Rights within itself has got certain critical penumbras, from which penumbras there are certain guarantees of rights that emanate from those guarantees within the Bill of Rights as a canopy. When you look at the entire process of the impeachment of the Deputy President, it lends us one lesson, that actually we have not tested the elastic limits of Kenya's Constitution. And this is one opportunity for testing the elastic limits of the Constitution. To what extent can they stretch? Remember that just this afternoon, when counsel for Rigathi Gachagua came to pronounce that he is taken ill, everybody was left baffled. What follows next? Because Kenya's history has never suffered such kind of a critical situation in such a nick of time of an impeachment that is historical. And judiciously, the Speaker granted latitude for counsel to seek the status of Rigathi Gachagua Deputy President and made another ruling. In fact, one thing that is very judicious of Speaker Kingi is that he even brought it to the floor of the House and made a supplementary motion to consider postponing the sitting of the Senate to a special sitting on Saturday. The Senate, in its right, decided to continue with the business of the day. So that's one thing that we learn, that actually every moment is an opportunity for us to learn. Secondly, is that we as a people, led by the Constitution and the laws of the land, it is important for us to respect the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that we gave unto ourselves by way of the 67% of the people in 2010 who voted in affirmation of it through the referendum. Thirdly, I think the other thing is that this being a classroom without walls, this entire political legal process, that it is important for us to clean house, make politics clean, and the Constitution could be the safest detergent if at all institutions work the way National Assembly and the Senate have worked expeditiously to ensure that we get to run away from the kind of politics that are retrogressive, kind of poisoned chalice. Because, Ashley, let me ask you, in the circumstances that Rigathi Gachagua, for example, is not impeached, or, for example, the courts get to grant him appropriate reliefs that do not have him vacate office, how will Rigathi Gachagua work with the cabinet? How will he work with the president? How will he work with the Council of Governors at which he is at odds? I think for purposes of interpreting the Constitution of Kenya 2010 through Article 259, constraining the Constitution in a manner that fosters good governance and the rule of law, it is important that we get to have politics that works, not just for the ruling party and the ruling coalition, but works for the country.
And it's a good thing you mentioned the issue of interpreting, because everyone does it differently. And there were questions that were being raised in this afternoon when we saw what happened with the Deputy President falling sick. And many were saying, does the plenary have a time limit in an impeachment process? Because you see, the Constitution says the committee. So where does that leave?
Ashley, good thing is that law and its interpretation cannot be homogenized. And that's why there are various schools of thought. People belong to various schools of thought. Good thing about schools of thought is that they don't ask for school fees. And so, because of people belonging in various schools of thought, that is one of them. And because it cannot be homogeneous, even though as lawyers we went to various schools of law, interpretation is not even the work of counsel, it's the work of the judiciary. But we help society to understand the law. I will tell you this, Ashley, that I think it is important for us to see that the interpretation of the law should be in such a way that progresses the society in a way that makes it not just cohesive, but progressive and better, not otherwise, or not inverted.
Okay, I want to touch on one of the charges the Deputy President is facing, touching on the National Intelligence Service, because he's criticized for sort of letting the cat out of the bag in terms of confidential conversations, yet he's a member of the National Security Council. So, from your take, did NIS truly drop the ball when it comes to the Finance Bill 2024 protest, or did the DP's speech in Mombasa stir the pot since he's a member of the NSC, despite the spirit of institutional leadership? Can he raise these questions in the NSC forum? And is NIS immune to criticism?
Well, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, you say correctly that he let the cat out of the bag. I'm not so sure whether this cat had kittens. But let me put it this way, that it was improper for the DP to address critical issues of national security through the media. As a member, a ranking member for that matter, of the National Security Council, appreciating Article 238 of the Constitution, there are other procedural mechanisms that you could raise issues, even with the president, or even the Security Council itself. Secondly, we know that, as Robert Greene puts it in the 48 Laws of Power, that when you violate the rules of power and politics, then the unfortunate winds become the winds in your sails. Right now, we are seeing him actually struggling to manage those winds that actually are promising not just a hurricane, but a typhoon against his political survival. The NIS is not immune to criticism.
Okay.
But what nature of criticism is it? When an ordinary citizen voices against intelligence or security organs, it is acceptable. But when, for example, how would you take it if the president was to criticize the intelligence unit? The deputy president is the principal assistant to the president, not just a heartbeat away from the presidency. In fact, the deputy president is a semi-permeable membrane away from the presidency. To start criticizing the intelligence unit, he can actually potentially even criticize the military. How will he, if at all anything happens to the office of the president and it falls vacant, how will he work with the intelligence? How will he work with the military?
Okay.
That is what leaves the bad taste in the mouth. And one would want to argue that because of that statement by the deputy president, one may have wanted to conclude that at that moment, politically, he was dead from the neck upwards.
Interesting. So in your view, it is an impeachable offense. I'd like to evaluate your take on the deputy president's defense, because he mentioned he learned from the best. And there were video excerpts of the then Deputy President, William Ruto, actually criticizing the Inspector General of Police, slandering equally the DCI as well, former Kinoti. Well, what do you make of that, even as we appreciate that the Senate is voting on the 11th count currently?
Unless I have missed some context and issues, to the best of my knowledge, Jesse, the president is not on the cross.
True.
And is not facing impeachment motion. For the deputy president to bring in the issue that he learned from the best, and that the best to him is the rest that needs to be considered, I think he missed the boat by the river. Instead of defending himself and trying to exonerate himself, he tried to rope in the president and other people, sort of the analogy of a drowning man trying to clutch at the straw. I think the deputy president was trying to say that as you are trying to crucify me, why can't you crucify the president? Because he too has walked this path. And that's why he started falling into the ditch. I think Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua loves holes too much, that he has been digging too many of deep holes in the recent weeks.
But ain't it a quasi-judicial process? What happens to the evidence? Because we saw senators argue that there's not enough evidence, as much as it is a political process.
Oh yes, and they are right and wise. Because this is not about the evidentiary weight and value of the evidence adduced before the Senate, because it's not a criminal proceeding. We are not having substantive judges of the High Court or Court of Appeal or Supreme Court sitting in the Senate. It's quasi-judicial because there are no substantive judges in the Senate. It is a political process that is predicated on fundamentals of law. And that's why the law provides that for an impeachable offense, it has to be based in law. It's in the Constitution.
Okay.
But the entire process is political. When you look at election petition E11 of 2022, the impeachment of Sonko.
Yeah, I'll have to cut you short. Apologies, Jarvis. We have to cross over back to the Senate. Let's listen in to what Senate Speaker Kingi has to say.
Senator Miraj, proceed to dispatch and cast your vote.
From there.
Okay, let's just continue with our conversation even as the senators deliberate on the final vote based on the 11 charges facing the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. We had to cut you short a little bit earlier on. Kindly proceed, yeah.
Tonight, it seems that the curtain is falling on the Deputy President.
Yeah.
And it's not just an ordinary curtain. It is an iron curtain because it's falling hard on him. If at all, he's going to be impeached and have him vacate office. Tonight, we like it or not, Kenya is at the crossroads of history. No country in East Africa or in Africa has ever impeached a deputy president. No country in the world has impeached a deputy president in the manner that we have. That's why for me, where I sit here in this chair tonight, Kenya is one of the foremost democracies on this continent and in the world.
Tell me about, briefly, the issue about state and public officers receiving gifts from members of the public. The Deputy President sentimentally mentioned that, you know, I'm a dairy farmer, I have over 200 cows, most if not all of which I was given by the good Kalenjin people. How should
the
he
Deputy
go about
President,
that? Yeah.
by that statement, he put his foot in the mouth. But he forgot that that foot was so dirty that it would be realized by the viewers and the listeners. Look, the law provides quite clearly that when a public servant receives any gift that is more than 20,000 shillings, he should make a declaration, and if more than 20,000 shillings, surrender to the state. Of the dairy cattle that he farms, has he surrendered? Did he declare? Because I don't know about you, Jesse, but is there any dairy cow that could be obtained in calf that's about 15,000 shillings? Maybe one that has just been born, which is incapable of being in calf. And those are some of the challenges that the Deputy President brought up about himself. The other thing is this, look, critical questions that arise beyond the issue of surrendering gifts by state officers and public servants. Now that the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, has got presidential honors, Elder of the Golden Heart, if and when he is impeached, will he retain that title as well, Elder of the Golden Heart? We don't have precedents for that in this country. It may be important that when a state officer who has got presidential honors is impeached, should have the gazettement of such title, because how should we, for example, when you are an elder of the Golden Heart, you get impeached for violation of the Constitution and the laws of the land. Do you still have a golden heart and a golden character?
All right, I just want to, before we digress, the issue of saying this, was given to me.
Yeah.
How do we distinguish between deputy president as the entity and me bequeathing it to a friend who is Rigathi Gachagua? Does the law provide such, perhaps?
Do you know that the moment he took oath of office as deputy president, he ceased becoming an ordinary citizen? And that's why when you look at the BBI decision, because former President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was president at the time, having gazetted task forces as president, gazette notices as president, it in fact stopped him by way of that authority of that office from being an ordinary citizen to conduct such an act, to move a motion for a referendum to change the Constitution of Kenya by way of the proposals when you look at Article 255, 256, 257. So as a matter of fact, the fact that he took oath of office as deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, ceased being an ordinary citizen. When you gift such a person anything, even if it's an ordinary pen, you will not say that you gifted Rigathi Gachagua. You gifted a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. If you were to shake hands with him, you will say, today I shook the hands of the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. And so that is the variance that comes in when somebody occupies such a critical office that is protected. He's a tenured office holder for that matter, and for God's sake. So for that reason, it behooves a conscientious and conscious deputy president or state officer to make a declaration of whatever gifting he or she has received, that, as the law provides, is up to 20,000 shillings, if at all, and then beyond 20,000 shillings, surrender it to the state.
Okay. There's a question here that we're being asked by one of the viewers. And of course, you know what has been lined up for the weekend. Tomorrow, National Assembly, and then chances are we don't know what will happen on Saturday and Sunday. Let's wait and see. But he is asking, there's a possibility that a nominee could be approved and be sworn in before the case is determined. Where does that leave Gachagua?
Well, I think likely right now it may leave him at Karen Hospital, because I understand that's where he is. But as a matter of fact, the law provides that the moment the Senate impeaches a deputy president, the Speaker of the Senate will make a declaration by way of announcement of a gazette notice that the Senate, by way of impeachment, has removed the deputy president from office. That moment that office falls vacant. The Constitution provides that within that period of vacancy, the president has got 14 days to have a nominee, convey the name of the nominee to Parliament for purposes of consideration. Within the 14 days, the president can choose to use the first few hours of the 14 days to pick the nominee and convey to the Parliament. Parliament has got 60 days to consider the nominee. It can choose to use the 50th day, the 60th day, or the first day within the first few hours to consider the nominee as conveyed by the president. And that's why it must not surprise anyone if at all tonight a gazette notice comes out that he has been impeached, and then the name comes out tomorrow of a nominee of the deputy president.
Interesting. Let's cross over back to the Senate. There seems to be developments based on the voting patterns of the senators. Let's listen in.
Abstention 0. Ayes have it. Charge number 2. Ayes 28, nays 39, abstention 0. So the nays have it. Charge number 3. Ayes 19, nays 45, abstention 3. So the nays have it. Charge number 4, the ayes at 51, nays at 16, abstention at 0. The ayes have it. Charge number 5, ayes 49, nays 16, abstention 2. So the ayes have it. Charge number 6, ayes at 48, nays at 18, abstention 1. So the ayes have it. Charge number 7, the ayes 13, nays 53, abstention 1. So the nays have it. Charge number 8, ayes 27, nays 40, abstention 0. So the nays have it. Charge number 9, ayes 46, nays 20, abstention 1. So the ayes have it. Charge number 10, ayes 22, nays 45, abstention 0. The nays have it. Charge number 11, the ayes 18, nays at 47, abstention 2. So the nays have it. Now, honorable senators, the result of the division indicate that the Senate has upheld the following impeachment grounds. 1, gross violation of Articles 10(2)(a), B, and C, 27(4), 73(1)(a), and 2B, 75(1)(c), and 129(2) of the Constitution, and Article 147(1), as read together with Article 131(2)(c) and D of the Constitution. 4, gross violation, ground number 4, gross violation of Article 161 of the Constitution on the institutional and decisional independence of judges. Ground number 5, gross violation of Articles 3(1) and 148(5)(a) of the Constitution and the fidelity to the oath of office and allegiance. Ground number 6, serious reason to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes under sections 13(1)(a) and 62 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. Ground number 9, gross misconduct that is incompatible with the high calling and dignified status of the office of the Deputy President and a member of the Cabinet and the National Security Council. His Excellency the Deputy President has publicly attacked and undermined work of the National Security Intelligence Service and its officers. Now, honorable senators, pursuant to Article 145(7) and 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 78(8) of the Senate has resolved to remove from office by impeachment His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, AGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Accordingly, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, AGH, ceases to hold office. Thank you. You may rise, honorable senators. Now, honorable senators, there being no business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 22nd of October, 2024 at 2:30 p.m.
It is now official. Rigathi Gachagua is no longer the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. That position is vacant as per the communication given by the Senate Speaker, Amason Kingi, a while ago. Remember, this has been a lengthy process that has come to a logical conclusion at the Senate. Remember, Rigathi Gachagua definitely has recourse in the corridors of justice, but bearing in mind the succession politics that have been playing out even before he was impeached, it's only a matter of time till his successor gets to that particular position as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So it's official. We no longer have a Deputy President as we speak currently. Of course, the next process we might see is the National Assembly starting the process of vetting the nominees that will be handed by the President, William Ruto. That's the latest from the Senate. We now want to cross over live to our reporter, our senior political affairs reporter, Daniel Kariuki, who's joining us from just outside Parliament. Kariuki, I don't know if I should say good evening, but that's the latest that has played out in the Senate. Rigathi Gachagua stands impeached. It would be interesting to get the sentiments of some of the leaders as they flock out from the Senate buildings. But what exactly can you tell us, bearing in mind this is the start of the succession race? There's been so many names that have been touted. What can you mention?
Right, Jesse, it's good evening to you, but maybe not a very good evening to the former Deputy President, Jeffrey Rigathi Gachagua, who, as you have put it clearly, is no longer the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and that has actually been communicated by the Speaker of the Senate, that is Amason Kingi, who has said the position as per now is vacant. And Jesse, it has been a long day, of course, with the back and forth that has been witnessed this afternoon from 2:30 p.m. When we could not see the Deputy President here. It was a no-show for the Deputy President, and we were later informed that he was admitted at the current hospital. And Jesse, just to bring you to speed, I can see senators leaving the chambers. Today it was full to capacity. Definitely for the first time, we can see that it was full to capacity, 67 senators, of course, voting on the various grounds. And I want to try and get at least one or two senators that I can talk to and hear what they have to say concerning this impeachment motion that was before the Senate for the 2 days that we have witnessed marathon proceedings in the Senate with counsel from the Deputy President, the former Deputy President side, and also the counsel from the National Assembly side trying to argue their cases. And of course, this afternoon is where everything was so apparent that there was possibility of going on with the sittings. Remember, when the Deputy President did not appear in the afternoon, then there was questions and
Okay, we seem to have lost Daniel Kariuki. The monkeys are hanging on the lines. We'll try and establish contact with him as soon as possible, but he's just coming to us live from outside the Senate buildings, where it's a beehive of activities as various leaders make their way out of the Senate. Following that particular ruling by the Senate Speaker, Amason Kingi, following the voting process, it's now official. Rigathi Gachagua is no longer the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. We seem to have established connection with our senior political affairs reporter, Daniel Kariuki. Kariuki, back to you. Sorry for that brief interruption.
Right, my apologies for that technical hitch there. And I was just telling you how the situation, or rather the proceedings, have been this afternoon in the Senate, and what actually prompted the lawyers to move from the chambers. I want to speak to some of the senators, at least to hear what they have to say concerning this sitting that was happening here. Mheshimiwa, thank you very much. Just come here so that we can have just some reaction concerning what has happened this evening. Of course, you are a member of parliament, but you are here this evening. Maybe you can bring us to speak maybe what happened.
Yangu ni kidogo sana kusema asanti kwa kazi ile ambayo imefanyika pale Senate. Ni kazi nzuri sana ambayo ni kazi ambayo hauna kabila wowote. Na huu ndio wakati nzuri ambaye hata Kenyans watajua kwamba kazi inaweza kufanyika. William Samoei Ruto, huu ndio wakati wake wa kuamka na kufanya kazi. yule alikuwa ambaye anamzuia, ambaye hiyo imetolewa barabarani, ya kwamba hii kiti ya deputy president ikianza kupeanwa, sisi watu wa Mount Kenya East tunahitaji hiyo kiti. Kwa sababu ya nini? Tulimpatia mzee Jomo Kenyatta miaka 15, tukampatia Kibaki miaka 10, tukampatia Uhuru miaka 10 na Rigathi Gachagua miaka 2. Kwa hivyo hii kiti ikiwa Mount Kenya East kwa Kithure Kindiki, sisi hiyo ndio furaha yetu.
Kwa hivyo unasema kwamba what was the interest you being here all this time, and it is of course the Senate proceedings.
Interest yangu ilikuwa kwa sababu mimi ni Mkenya na lazima niwe hapa hivi, na hiyo ilikuwa interest yangu kuwa hapa, na nimefurahia kwa sababu kila kitu kimeenda sawa.
Asante sana. I can see a senator from Nyandarua. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News. And of course, you've followed the proceedings in Senate. And Deputy President, or rather, Jeffrey Rigathi Gachagua is no longer the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Your reaction to it?
Well, that is a democratic process. I personally voted against the motion. But since the majority have had their way, ours is to have our say. It is actually clear that the motion that we had was a motion that was crafted and not a lot of material evidence was provided that was sufficient enough. We didn't meet the threshold that is required. And actually, in my opinion, feel that this is not an impeachment that can stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. If it was to be tested in a trial court, a court of law, yes, in a court that will be able to look at the facts, I'm not sure this is a trial that would stand the test of time.
Right. Let me engage the senator for Kirinyaga. I can also see another senator here, but let me first engage the senator from Kirinyaga. Definitely, this motion, or rather, Rigathi Gachagua is no longer the deputy president, and you are on that side of voting against the motion. What next after this, as a person who is very close and allied to deputy president?
First of all, I want to say that
former deputy president.
First of all, I want to say that after impeachment, there is still an opportunity to go to the court of law, because that's an option which is still open, especially because there are some of the things that didn't go well in the Senate. First of all, it's against the law to condemn anybody unharmed. The deputy president was sick. The Senate was notified, but for some reason, the motion still continued. Secondly, there is an issue of the public participation. You see, the public participation must be fair. And if you look at how the public participation was conducted, it was conducted by the members of National Assembly who had already signed for the motion to impeach the deputy president. Therefore, there is no way that you could have expected fairness from members of parliament who had already decided to impeach the deputy president. So on my side, and my people of Kirinyaga, we were against the motions and the way everything has been done, and we stand by that until now. Yes.
Definitely, looking at the grounds, several of the grounds, some of the grounds, the senators voted against the motion, and other grounds they voted to the yes to the ground. Maybe you can bring us to speed. Could it have been maybe your side, you had not really tried to mobilize and ensure the senators know about the grounds?
I would not like to say much, but I'll leave that to the eyes of public opinion, because first of all, you can't, if more than 55 senators, all of them voting for the same grounds. I want to think about that. 55 senators voting to impeach the deputy president on the same grounds. You see, if it's one, it's one. If it's two, it's two. If it's four, it's four. Is it possible? Even if you do it mathematically, it's not possible. So, if you go and look at the grounds which have been used to impeach the deputy presidents, all those senators, 55 senators, vote for the same grounds. There were 11 grounds. The possibility that 55 senators will vote for ground 1, ground 3, ground 6, and ground 7, you know, come on, it's not practical. Yes, it's not practical.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Senator, for Kirinyaga Murango, for giving us those insights concerning the voting that has just happened there to remove by way of impeachment Rigathi Gachagua as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And it is official. He is actually a former deputy president. And I was just bringing you to speed with what had happened, as I continue also to get at least one or two senators to continue giving us more insights on what happened, transpired inside there. I can see more senators engaging other media houses, but I'll try to get at least one or two so that they can tell us exactly that. But I was telling you that there was a back and forth in the afternoon concerning the no-show of Deputy President, former Deputy President. I think we are learning to say this former Deputy President. We are actually practicing to say former Deputy President. Now I'm joined by Senator Tom to just bring us to speed. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News. We are live. Definitely, this is a historic something that will go into the history of this country. The first Deputy President to be impeached. What's your take about this?
Yeah, it is historic. It is an impeachment that has occurred for the first time. Senate has been impeaching governors. This is the first time that we have put into action the rules that provide for the impeachment of a deputy president under Articles 144, 145 to 150. And now it's been impeached under 157. Essentially, it is a demonstration, one, that Senate is up to task, but number two, that Senate can undertake this function as under the dictates of the Constitution. Out of the 11 charges that were filed against the deputy president, 5 succeeded. In Senate, once one charge succeeds, you are impeached, and that is why His Excellency Gachagua, EGH, remains impeached from the moment we made that decision.
Yes, looking at the numbers, you could see there are some grounds that the numbers could go all the way to 50. Like the first ground, the numbers were 53 to 13. The senators overwhelmingly voting for that ground. Maybe you can tell us about the numbers. Today we could see the numbers was more.
The Senate votes on every count. Every senator will vote on every count. So that is why the numbers vary. Every senator is free to make a decision on every vote. Where a charge is not proved to the standards that are required, definitely a senator will vote no. That is why you find the numbers, and that is why I said out of the 11 charges, only 5 were proved. Only 5. And therefore, Senate threw out 6 of the charges. That is a sign of the independence of Senate and of senators. We are not rubber stamps. We vote in accordance with what we think emerges from the evidence.
Does the former deputy president stand a chance to make a comeback in any way?
Once you impeach, you out there. It's difficult to make a comeback, but I think he still has a recourse to go to court. He can proceed to court, and the courts will pronounce themselves because courts are independent and they make their own decisions.
Yes. Of course, we'll be keen and following to see what happens next to that matter to do with if the former deputy president has opportunity to make a comeback concerning the happenings that have happened today. Just to get a feel, the senator says that 5, or rather, this is what has happened. 5 of the charges were thrown out, meaning that the Senate has its own independence, and I'm going to be trying to get more of the senators. Just allow me just to get one of the senators, Senator from Muranga. I want to see if I can get him to just say one or two things. Thank you very much, Senator from Muranga here, just to bring us to speed. Regarding Gachagua is a former deputy president, and we saw you really argue out his case in the Senate and debate it. What's your take this evening?
Thank you very much, and I'm smiling because I don't know why we are calling him the former deputy president. You know, after the vote, of course, we have recourse in law, and we should be heading to court, of course, to seek that this decision may be overturned by the courts. Because as you know, this is a man that was condemned and had. This is a man that was condemned, whom people voted against while actually lying on a hospital bed. And so these are matters that we believe we are going to take to court. And we want to believe that our judicial officers, the judges, will get merit in this, and they are going to overturn this decision. And that is why I told you, I smile when you call him former deputy president, because it is not over until it is over.
Right, and you have said it right, that he still has a chance to move to the courts and try to prove his case. Now, what happens if even the courts goes the other way?
Fine. I mean, I would rather we cross that bridge when we reach it. We cannot start saying that what happens if the courts uphold this decision. But if the court upholds this decision and we go all the way to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court upholds this decision, we are going to abide by the decision of the court. But this was a very weak case. I do not believe that our judicial officers can uphold this particular decision by the Senate because it was irregular.
Let me ask you, before I hand it back to studio, people have been advising the deputy president, or rather former deputy president, to resign and not to get to this extent for the sake of his career. From where you sit, do you think he might make a comeback, looking at all the situations?
Of course, yes. A cat has 9 lives, my brother. And so he will make a comeback. But I want to tell you that the deputy president would not have resigned because that would have been a cowardly act. And the deputy president is not a coward. So we are going to pursue this matter up to Supreme Court. If needs be, we can even go to the East African Court of Justice.
Yes. Just allow me, Jesse, to talk to, at least to try and look at matters to do with gender, because I've engaged so many. At least you are here. Let me ask. Let me ask you, senator, nominated senator. Today happenings. You are saying you are sad today. Why are you sad? And Senator Muranga says,
what I am saying, in war, you don't kill a wounded soldier. Deputy President is a fellow soldier who is currently wounded. And you may have many reasons to staple on him, to destroy him. But me, as a religious Muslim woman, I'm saying that revenge belongs to God. And I want to say, as a country, we are even at war with many pressing issues. Yeah, many pressing issues like the GMO food, the leasing of our airport, the controversial chief and chef, education matters, whereby the university funding model. Yeah. So there are so many things. It pains me to see that whatever happened to witness whatever happened to President Ruto as a deputy president is the same. He is doing the same to Gachagua.
In 30 seconds, because I do not have time, 30 seconds, your advice to former deputy president.
My advice to former president, I am saying that I hope the court will give him justice.
Thank you very much. Nominated Senator there, Abdallah, just giving us insight concerning her take and opinion, views on what has transpired in the Senate. She says she's very disappointed. She is not happy. She is very angry. But Senator for Muranga says that he is smiling because he knows that things are going to change. Well, Jesse, that's just part of the reactions that have happened here. I can see Mheshimiwa Roko standing here, but I have been told I don't have time. So we are going to engage you later on. But Jesse, I want to hand it back to studio. And that is just some of the reactions that have happened here. And definitely, I believe tomorrow there will be more reactions. And of course, as we look forward to the special sitting by the National Assembly tomorrow, we are going to be looking at the order paper and part of what is going to be scheduled there to be discussed tomorrow morning at exactly 9:30 a.m. For the special sitting. But for now, over to you, Jesse and Ashley.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for Of course, Daniel Kariuki, they're just getting some reactions from senators and some members of parliament regarding that historic vote that led to the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. Now, before we get to the paper and what you should expect tomorrow, let's just take a look at the 5 grounds that led to his impeachment. One was the gross violation of Articles 10(2)(a), B, C, and 27(4)(7)(3)(a), among others. Another one is the violation of Article 161 on the independence of judges. And equally, we have a violation of Articles 3(1) and 148(5)(a) regarding oath of office. And we have another one here that is committing crimes under National Cohesion and Integration Act. And finally, misconduct by undermining the National Security Intelligence Service. Now, Rigathi Gachagua has been fired after 766 days in office.
Nimekuwa nikizungumza peke yangu hapa. Thank you, Annie. Haya basi. Subscribe, everyone. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Like I said, thank you, Annie, for letting me know that I was. Haya, subscribe. Everyone subscribe, like, share, comment, and do all the good stuff as we continue with the discussion. Like I was saying, Gachagua will probably be he will be exonerated because of Article 145. Article 145 really is going to be the part of the Constitution that will exonerate Gachagua. Like I said, Jamaa was not given the right to present himself. So we shall see what happens. I still have hope. I think Gachagua will be back. Just it's a matter of justice. It's not a matter of liking Gachagua. This is a matter of justice, and Gachagua deserves that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. People subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget, like the video. Tuzidi kuitana. Okay? Hebu tusikie ma-analysts wanasema nini, because I don't believe all of them. But here it is. Gachagua has been ametolewa katika kiti, but this is going to the courts. We shall listen in to the analyst. This guy who's talking a lot. Let me see. Anasema nini huyu jamaa?
Gachagua, we need this country. This country needs us. Let us move.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Poleni. Anyway, as we continue to give you what you need. Like I said, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. This is Kenyan Revolutionary. If this is your first time, please get in. Let's get
it's already being past midnight, so we'll definitely be monitoring the National Assembly in that special seating, even as we anticipate a Gazette notice and perhaps a notice filed in the courts as a matter of urgency, bearing in mind the developments that have just played out. My name is Jesse Rogers. Good evening.
Haya. Ndio hiyo basi. Gachagua met his fate today. And this is going to the court. The news is Gachagua has been ametolewa kiti, but like I said, it's not over yet. It's not over, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Do not worry if you're a Gachagua fan. I'm not a Gachagua fan, but I'm saying if we are to follow the law, Gachagua is not supposed to be removed because there's so much. Most of his rights have been violated here. Under Article 145, as I've been saying, this man has been removed through a kangaroo court. These senators did not follow the Constitution by all means. By no means did they follow the Constitution. No way. So please, if you're celebrating, please do not celebrate. Hold that champagne bottle that you want to pop up in celebration, because this is not over. In fact, earlier today, one of the justices, Mwilu, mentioned that the courts will actually take over this case and will deal with it. She actually hinted that it's almost as if she knew hii story itakuja will come in later. So she made herself clear. She made it clear that hii kitu itarudi kwa ninio, itarudi kotini. So here is Justice Philomena Mwilu, who basically said that this whole case will go to the ninio. So ndio hiyo basi. Let me play Justice Mwilu here so you can get what she was saying about what's happening. They had to let the Senate conclude their constitutional mandate. So then after that, the court shall take over and basically audit and see if this process was actually constitutional or not. And if it's not constitutional, then Gachagua will retain his seat. Here it is.
Process to follow. And therefore, everything has its own fast. And the impeachment process that is ongoing regarding our deputy president is not unique. It's an application of the Constitution. It's not something that has been plugged from the air. It has a constitutional process to follow. And therefore, to that extent, it is a constitutional process. If it comes back to the courts, it's been in the courts, the number of 20 whatever applications and cases. If it comes to court after Senate, whatever it is that happens, we don't know. We cannot anticipate the outcome of the Senate process. If it comes here, it's a case like the next case. It will be handled by we who sit in the judiciary in the manner the Constitution has authorized us to do, in the manner the law has authorized us to do. We can't go outside the Constitution. We can't go outside of the law.
The matter will go to the courts after this. So we're about to see that. As you can see, they already mentioned that Justice Philomena Mwilu told us, okay? Here's some snippets about what transpired. Here's Okiom Tata says something about what happened earlier. Oh, Lord.
Motion. Is it a censor motion or is it an... I wanted to ask whether Honorable Mutuze knows the difference between an impeachment motion and a censor motion. And if he does, where does he place his motion? Is it a censor motion or is it an impeachment motion? And what are the thresholds for each of those two motions, if you understand the difference? Thank you. I wanted to ask whether Honorable Mutuze knows the difference between an impeachment motion and a censor motion. And if he does, where does he place his motion? Is it a censor motion or is it an impeachment motion? And what are the thresholds for each of those two motions, if you understand the difference? Thank you. I wanted to ask whether Honorable Mutuze knows the difference between an impeachment motion and a censor motion. And if he does, where does he place his motion? Is it a censor motion or is it an impeachment motion? And what are the...
I would like to ask Honorable Mutuze, I hold you highly. I don't think that you're as idiotic as our colleagues will say. I want to ask you, between the time when the Deputy President was a member of Parliament and the time when he became the Deputy President, were you able to see whether there was a deliberate variation in the amounts of money that he was handling? Did you see whether the money that he was handling as a member of parliament, for example, changed then to the money that you brought in, where you're saying that there is some money laundering taking place. Were you able, or are you able to show that distinction in order for you to make your case? The second question I wanted to ask you again on the same issue. When you are trying to find out whether there is money laundering on any transaction, and I know chances are you did not have the technical expertise and maybe an investigative agency to help you. But did you, by any chance, find out money moving from anywhere, either through His Excellency the Deputy President's private accounts, or any money that was being borrowed? Because I know that one property you've mentioned that it was a loan, but all these other properties that you allege that the Deputy President had purchased, did you link that from money coming from some place or money coming from some illicit, like you say? Because I don't see that evidence on the table. And finally, I want to ask you again, Mr. Speaker, that if you look at the issue of the will of Mr. Gachagua, that is the former governor, did you by any chance get a way to ask either through the wife, the children, whether there was a meeting that took place where they were involved, or whether they were unhappy or happy with the transactions which were taking place? Because there isn't any evidence whatsoever of, for example, the wife complaining or the children complaining. Did you get anything like that which is substantive? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable senators, and I request that you listen to me. I was told yesterday that Vipingo Ridge, the two sons of His Excellency the Deputy President, are mere directors, and that the shares are owned by the estate of the late Derito Gachagua. But then you ask yourself, all of you here, you have children, why would my brother's children own my estate and not my children? Why would my brother's children be the ones who are directors in my estate and not my own children? If you die today, will your children be the ones being directors of your properties, or it is the children of your brothers? Don't you see this is suspicious? It is obviously suspicious. Number two, in law, and I want to challenge anyone. An estate, what is an estate? An estate is the totality of your belongings. So can an estate own an estate? It is administrators. We would expect that the executors in the estate who are named in the will are the ones who would have been named in the shareholding. And we know all these trick games that are being played around to hide ownership. And that, because I talked about circumstantial evidence, that is to be compared with the affidavit of Mr. Jomo in terms of how Jomo was approached to be proxy in buying the property, and how Jahenda, the question that has been asked, is the one operating the accounts. And we have been able to show that the same Jahenda, the same lady who works at the DP's office, is the same person who is the manager at the hotel and is the one who is operating the accounts. So I invite you to see the web of secrecy, the web of conspiracy. It is a web. And this is why I said these are white-collar crimes. They are done by intelligent people. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to get direct evidence, but in the totality of the circumstances, it points to money laundering and corruption.
Ulileta mashtaka 11. Vile unasimama huko leo, swali ya pili, ulileta mashtaka 11. Vile unasimama huko leo, unaona aibu kidogo kwamba ulilete porojo mingi na mambo mingi, kama ukiwa wakili hujafikiria vizuri. Sababu watu wa Marsabit wananiuliza, hiyo mtu kweli ni wakili ama ni mtu amekombolewa kutoka huko? Hebu jibu hiyo swali tafadhali. Swali ya pili, ulileta mashtaka 11. Vile unasimama huko leo, unaona aibu kidogo kwamba ulilete porojo mingi na mambo mingi, kama ukiwa wakili hujafikiria vizuri, sababu watu wa Marsabit wananiuliza hiyo mtu kweli ni wakili ama ni mtu amekombolewa kutoka huko? Hebu jibu hiyo swali tafadhali.
Senator Cherangei, thank you very much for the Bible verse. Let me now go to Senator Nandi, my good friend Senator Cherangei. Thank you very much for the Bible verse. I'll keep on reading it, and every time I read it, I will remember you. 5.2 billion worth. Did I ask for the worth declaration? I have said here I was not in an investigation journey. I was doing my role under the law to establish a prima facie case. And the last I know, in terms of public declaration, because this has also been asked, the Deputy President, during the presidential debate, as a candidate for election, did declare that he was worth 800 million shillings. I have listed companies, I have listed suspicious transactions that lead me to the conclusion that he is now worth 5.2 billion shillings. The law on unexplained assets, because this is important. The law on unexplained assets is such that you are asked, you own this, please tell us how you acquired it. Because as far as we know, your legitimate income cannot support this. That is what I have done. I have listed properties that I have laid evidence that they are either directly or indirectly owned by the Deputy President. It is upon him, and this law is established. It is upon him to tell us where he got money to buy those properties, because in as far as we know, his legitimate sources of income do not support that income.
Process for 2 days. We would not have been taking this process in the National Assembly. The president would sack the vice president at whims, including for not liking the color of his shoes. The fact that we are here in a situation where to impeach a deputy president, we have to go through these processes. Mr. Speaker, it shows our maturity. But let it not be mistaken, Mr. Speaker, as some people have, that the process of impeachment is a criminal trial. When you hear people ask the mover of the motion, do you have any proof? Can you demonstrate? It means they are confusing this process with a criminal process. It is not a criminal process. Mr. Speaker, what we have in impeachment is a halfway house between the whim before 2010 and the beyond reasonable doubt proof in a criminal trial. In the words of Article 50, all you have to show is reason to believe. Reason to believe. What the lawyers would call just a prima facie case. You do not have to demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt. So all the questions that I had my learned friends putting to the mover to prove, to demonstrate, they look good to the public gallery, but they add no value to the test for impeachment. Mr. Speaker, impeachment is like a vote of confidence or a vote of no confidence. Just the same way when you vote the president and the deputy, no one asks you to justify why, because you exercise your discretion. When you lose that confidence, no one should ask you to demonstrate why. That is why it's a political process. Otherwise, it could have been a judicial process or a religious process. Mr. Speaker, it is important to make two distinctions. First, that in this process, you do not have to prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. That's number one. The beyond reasonable doubt can come later when the other processes come in, like the investigative agencies.
Let's go to the question of Olive Gardens Hotel. Have it. I don't. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some massive documents here. Sometimes let's deal with the affidavit of Peterson Njomo Mushira.
Indeed.
According to Peterson Njomo Mushira, how did he acquire this property? Rather, how did his company, that's the correct way of putting it, isn't it? TM Engineering, yes? How did his company acquire this property? The process of acquisition.
He says he entered into a secret arrangement with the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua to purchase the property on their...
Who was purchasing the property?
On the understanding that...
No, I'm asking a different question. Who was purchasing the property?
That TM Engineering.
The purchaser of the property is TM Engineering?
Yes.
Who is the registered proprietor of the property?
Let me confirm. This is the Olive Gardens.
Who is the registered proprietor of the property, Olive Gardens Hotel?
I'm tracing the documents. Olive Gardens, the registered proprietor is Philip Wanjema Kago.
Sorry?
Philip Wanjema Kago.
Can you refer to the page, the volume and the page you're looking at?
This is the volume 2A, page 10 of 123.
Able to meet the bar, the threshold of the Constitution. So you're not doing an evidential analysis as an appellate court, but as a constitutional court. It's a bit different. You need to find at least one of those 5 grounds that has been upheld. There was reasonable evidence to guide or to support the finding of this Speaker of the Senators. So those are the 2 things that they'll be looking at. And then, just to clarify, they'll be looking at the entire process, both the process in the National Assembly, because if that process is found to have been unconstitutional, the theory that the fruits of a poisoned tree cannot be good. So if they find there's a problem there, they strike down the process. If that one was okay, they'll also test what happened in the Senate. They'll test issues of fair hearing, issues of, substantive issues, not small procedural issues. That's where I agree with Senior Counsel Abdikadir.
But Abdikadir, you disagree.
So I
saw you.
I absolutely disagree.
Yeah.
You see, we are fairly early in our constitutional development under this current constitution. And most of our lawyers are very comfortable with the courts. That is the process they understand. Now, it's absolutely wrong to say that in a presidential setup, one arm of government has supervisory jurisdiction over another arm of government. That is constitutional fallacy. These are co-equal branches of government. They have powers separated. You do yours, I do mine. We check and balance each other. That's two. Number three, again, the reason why you have appeals, an appeals process from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court is because you know that courts can be wrong. Courts can be wrong, and judges have a right to be wrong. So look at the Wambora case, for example. High Court says he was rightly impeached. Court of Appeal says he was rightly impeached. Supreme Court says he was wrongly impeached. Yeah. But 4 years later, number one. Number two, the Supreme Court can hold today A and exactly the same facts tomorrow hold B because of the circumstance changing and because of the development. The reason why I'm that interested in this issue, I'm usually not very noisy on these things. The reason really why I'm very noisy on this is because you know what you just said now. Look, we have a very important tool to get hold of politicians because if the template is that, and you asked the question, how many would pass the test? 0. Some asked, how many of them bully public servants? All of them bully public servants. Now we have a tool which we are going to completely annul if we go through the court process. And there was no intention, and I was there, there was no intention to send this to the courts. As a lawyer, I will be very comfortable to sit before a judge, and any judge would be happy to entertain the constitutionality. It sounds very sexy, but that is not the interest of impeachment. Impeachment is a tool for parliament. Impeachment is a tool for the political arm to hold the other political arms or holders of high office. Look, the most important function of parliament is oversight. Oversight. The most important tool of oversight is impeachment, is firing somebody, either minister or a president or a deputy president. If you say that is subject to the courts, from High Court through an appeals process, 3-tier, all to the Supreme Court, you have, I can assure you not one president will get impeached.
Abdikadir, I want to ask about the balance, because for me, the dilemma is this.
Yes.
That one, even through an impeachment process, which you say is a political process and is under the National Assembly, he still has his rights, as deputy president. And perhaps can challenge that his rights were not followed, in the process of removing him.
Yes.
But on the other hand, there is the other question of whether the courts, assuming that this is a representative democracy in which we are in, and that has been delegated to the members of National Assembly and those of the Senate, and that assuming that they are passing this vote on our behalf, if it is therefore that we say that Parliament, which is the Senate and the National Assembly, have both said they do not want the deputy president, and they're speaking for us as Kenyans. So essentially Kenyans have said, we impeach the deputy president.
Yes.
But then he has rights and he goes to the court. Then the court says, the process wasn't, or at least he gets a stay.
Good question. Yes.
So he has rights, but so do the people through their representatives.
Good question.
Is the court then usurping the power of the people through their representatives who say, we don't want so-and-so as our governor, or we don't want, however, he might also feel his rights have been violated and would seek redress at the courts. So, where is the balance between the interests of the two, of the individual really, and of the people?
You really hit the heart of very many of the critical issues. Very good questions. Number one, in my opinion, there is no right to be deputy president. There's no such right under the Constitution, or to be president, or to be minister. You are elected into office, you are elected out of office, impeached out of office, no such rights exist. Number two, let me just read for you what the Supreme Court said in terms of the separation of powers, if you don't mind. Just 2 minutes.
No, please.
The Wambora cases, as regards to separation of powers, the following principles apply to Kenya. This is the Supreme Court. Number one, each arm of government had an obligation to recognize the independence of the other arms of government. 2, each arm of government was under duty to refrain from directing another organ on how to exercise its mandate. The courts of law were the proper judge of compliance for all public agencies, but that was attached with the duty of objectivity and specificity in the exercise of the judgment. For the due functioning of constitutional governance, the courts was to be guided by restraint, limiting themselves to intervention in requisite instances upon appreciating the prevailing circumstances and the objective needs and public interest attending to each case. The public interest attending to this case is that we don't interfere with the decision of the parliament because of procedural niceties. Because elsewhere in the constitution, we are told, they say procedure is the handmaiden of substance. The substance is to hold high office holders accountable. Now, if you are going to use procedure to dismantle that, we will not have the tool which we just discovered now, which is that let us hold everybody to that form to sign. Really, that's where I come from, in terms of the development of our constitutional principles and law.
Yeah, I just hold that we have a beautiful constitution that is sometimes too sophisticated for us. It's way ahead of our political class. You know, at the basic level, senior counsel, when you even see how this doctrine of separation of powers plays out, you will notice that there are some arms that just pay lip service to it.
True, absolutely.
And
Parliament is the first.
Yes, Parliament is one of them. You see a parliament that operates out of a tent from State House, you know, get instructions and all that. This is not really what the Constitution intended.
I agree.
There's also something else, which is the attitude, and I think I mentioned about that, where sometimes the political class especially would think that the doctrine doesn't actually takes them away from obligations to the Constitution. They think, no, the Constitution is yours. We are passing these laws this way and that way. And in fact, if that kind of thinking and attitude was actually allowed to prevail, the Finance Act would be law today.
Yes. BBI would have passed.
BBI would have
started the process of changing the constitution.
Yes, because unfortunately, and I would say this, that there's only one arm of government that is really trained to align to the constitution. The other one has to be shepherded most of the time, sometimes even by force of law. Yeah.
Yes, I actually agree with you, Linus. There is a philosophy that says that the constitution is intervention. It creates an interventionist court. And what we've seen in the last 14 years is that some of the most significant decisions that have faced our constitutional trajectory have been by the courts. Even in presidential election petitions, there have been those where, for example, the one of 2017, which annulled a presidential election. Even the vote we did in 2013 in the month of March was because of a court decision. There have been really fundamental and groundbreaking court decisions. When I was in the Supreme Court the other day and we were arguing or submitting on the Finance Bill 2023, the one that has been declared unconstitutional by the Court of Appeal, one of the issues that precisely was there was that because of the progress that has been made by court decisions, even on issues like public participation, state agencies have become more sensitive about the need to engage the people. Because of the progress from court decisions on even impeachment processes, the impeachment process, there's greater attempt to recognize that this is not just a political process. You know, before the Constitution of 2010, we had vote of no confidence, which was purely political. And the Constitution brought in a standard. And the reason it brought in a standard is to create security of tenure, which means that if you make a nonsense of security of tenure through procedural failures, is not just on substance, but also procedural failures, the court will intervene. And so the court has asserted this, and it has actually been impactful in determining when governors, for example, will leave office, like the case of Mike Sonko, or where they will be preserved, because the people who can violate the constitution could be the state officer themselves. It could be the National County Assembly that has started the impeachment process. It could even be the Senate. Anyone can impeach the constitution. So they can violate the constitution. So the idea of the constitution is that nobody, no person, body, or authority is above the law. And all of them need to meet a certain test. And I think even the Speaker of the Senate, what the Supreme Court has talked about is a doctrine called institutional committee. You respect the other arms of government. But the role of the judiciary is to review the actions of the other arms of government. That's their role. The role of the legislature is to pass laws to oversight the government. The role of the executive is to implement policy. So each of them has a role. So this issue of the three arms of government, all of them getting power from the people, is to recognize that the people in their sovereign will, Article 1 of the Constitution, have given power to the judiciary to check the other organs of government and individuals. And so it is to be welcomed, in my view, and celebrated that we will test the constitutionality of the processes that happened in the National Assembly and the Senate before the courts. In fact, it is that threat, as I think Linus was saying, that the court may intervene, that forces these other people to behave in the best manner possible, so that when the court intervenes, they can give a clean bill of health.
And you saw that with the public participation.
Exactly.
The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, actually spoke to it and said, this has been a matter, it has been before the courts, and so we're going to be, very deliberate and intentional about going through public participation. So maybe that would be it. Gentlemen and ladies, we can talk about this for quite some time. I know, Charles, you're looking at your watch. It's past your bedtime. It's past all our bedtime. We started this conversation a day ago, and here we still are. Charles, I'll probably take that as your last comment. Senior Counsel of the Kadir as well?
Yes. First of all, I think this is a momentous day, not because of the individual or the actual politics, but because of the step we have taken as a country in terms of our constitutional development. I think we have a long way. I absolutely agree that in terms of our organs, certainly the judiciary has been the best in terms of the performance. I have a lot of confidence in our courts. I 100% believe that they have no role in the impeachment process. I believe that a long court process following impeachment essentially nullifies impeachment and was not the intention of the Constitution, and that you can have too much of a good thing. I will be happy to see how the process progresses. My hope is that the Kenyan people will elect good people to office so that we don't have to ask another arm to oversight the poor parliamentarians that we have elected, or the poor executive we have elected. I think we have a long way to go, but we are certainly very far from where we were. We used to have a president who fires
at 1 p.m.
Vice president, and now that is not the case. Right now we have representatives of the people firing members of the high office. It shows how powerful our parliament is. I only wish they can take back their powers. What Lalan said was correct. Even the chairs of their committees are appointed by the executive. The simplest, actually the most critical function for Parliament is to hire their own committee chairs, and that comes as an edict from elsewhere, which is really a shame. So I think it's kudos to our constitution, kudos to our constitutional process, and Aluta continue, I guess.
He says something interesting, and I'll not say anything else after this. And it reminds me of what Senator Tabitha Karanja said on the floor of the House when she was speaking about, when she was debating the motion. And she said the following, which I'll quote verbatim. I wish we could go back to Moi regime when you could sack and nothing happens. When the boss says he doesn't want the person he hired, it is very hard to say you can save that person.
Yes.
Even if you save that person, where's he going to work? You may find the doors are locked. I must say that as much as she was speaking within parliamentary privilege, to say go back to the Moi regime is quite something else. But at the same time, we received information which are trying to verify about the gazettement of the decision by the Senate. Is it this evening or is it last evening?
Yes.
It's actually
dated.
genuine.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Speaker Emerson Jeffer Kingi has gazetted the impeachment of the Deputy President, removal from office by impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. He lays out the grounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the gross violation of the Constitution, different articles, and then it's serious reasons to believe that the Deputy President has committed crimes under NCIC law and gross misconduct. So that is gazetted, so it takes the full force of the law. And of course, this is to inform the public. Also, something to reflect upon. Remember on the 15th of September, it was a Sunday. There were different church services that had been organized. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was at Our Lady of Sorrows in Kirinyaga. The president was at a church, I think it was in Resambu.
Yes.
Thereafter, he traveled to Nyeri County. The deputy president had been expected to also attend. He didn't attend. There was a seat that was vacant. Now it is truly vacant. Something else happened on that day. Kimani Ichung'wah spoke to the president and told him, shake off the snake within your government. Let me just read what he said. Don't be afraid. Shake off the snake. That viper on your hand, the viper, the snake in your government, please shake it off. Not for your own sake, so that it doesn't bite you. Shake it off so that your hand may do what the Lord proposed that hand to do. That was 15th of September. After that, the deputy president was involved in a series of activities, series of interviews. On 20th of September, he spoke to us on Citizen TV, said a lot of things, revealed to the country that he'd been removed from the WhatsApp group that organizes the Diary of the President. On that night, the president was traveling to the US to attend the UN General Assembly. The deputy president said that he was not even aware of the time that the president was traveling. Later on, of course, the president traveled. We haven't had much of the president since that trip. He has attended a few church events, a few sort of business events. But then again, since that time, the deputy president has been pleading with the president to put his house in order, put his political party in order, put his government in order. He has gone to different church events and said that whatever happens, people should remain peaceful. Now, after all those things, all those interviews, today is 17th, or well, now 18th, but the decision was made on 17th of October. So it took exactly 32 days from the pronouncement of shake of the snake within your government. And the president has never spoken about that matter, but action has taken place.
For me, I want to look at this in terms of the politics in the mountain. What does it do to the politics in that area, considering what this conversation has done since the talk of impeachment were murmurs and whispers until now it's become a reality. Rigathi Gachagua is now former deputy president. So much so that one of the accusations against him was that Murima shareholding, keeps talking about that particular part of the country where he comes from, because of course ultimately he wants to be the kingpin of central Kenya. But this is happening almost 3 years to the next general elections. So what will it do to the politics of the mountain, the politics of the country, and the president's plans for re-election in 2027? I won't say more than that. I think it's interesting to see what will happen in the mountain.
Well, we've pushed this a bit. It's 1:45 1 a.m. And I think the secret is we are waiting for all the Gazette notices. Because they'll come in quick succession, quite momentous events around the capital tomorrow, starting with the special session of the National Assembly, whose assignment will shortly be known. We were hoping it is going to be within this show, but looks like we'll have to wait for a few more moments. But history is being written. Rigathi Gachagua becomes only the second in command to be removed in the manner he was, and the senior counsels, I'm sure, will whip me if I say this, but I'll try and qualify. There was Josephat Karanja, who in 1989 was removed through a motion of no confidence that was moved by David Mwenje, who was then the member of parliament for Embakasi constituency. And since then, I mean, it was a house process under the old constitution, and he resigned. And today, is it yesterday?
Yesterday.
This Mzungu way of, in Kimasai, tomorrow is yet to happen.
True.
Yeah.
We have to see the sun.
A night is one.
A night is one. So, I mean, Rigathi Gachagua is now former deputy president and becomes the second one to be removed in that way. But overall, and we didn't find time to talk about that, but the second office, the office of vice president before this, and now the office of the deputy president, a very hot seat. And should we say the next occupant should also think about the exit strategy?
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be the impeachment starts now.
The record is 2 years.
Yeah, that would be it. In this case, the relationship seems to have broken down, at least according to what he told you when he sat down with you when he was deputy president. Broke down certainly way before the 2-year mark.
A year after.
A year after, they took office. Thank you very much for watching this extended special edition of News Gang on a very historic day for a very historic moment in the country. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua impeached, found guilty of 5 out of 11 counts. That Gazette notice already out informing the public. My guess is there will be a new nominee by tomorrow morning. Parliament that has that special sitting to discuss, quote, priority business will certainly consider that as its priority business once they, begin their sittings and their hearings. If the speed that we have seen at the National Assembly during the impeachment vote and at the Senate is anything to go by, might that name have already been voted on later on today, which is Friday, the 18th of October? We shall see. Will a new deputy president be sworn in, if not Friday, Saturday? Might there be a new person sitting right next to the president on Sunday during the Mashujaa Day celebrations in Kwale? Anything is possible in this country. Efficiency is something that we have seen from the executive when it is something that they will. Thank you for watching this edition of News Gang. Have a good night and a good morning and a good day, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, like the video and subscribe. All of you subscribe to this channel because we shall be covering very closely everything that transpires after this so-called impeachment of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Gachagua Rigathi. We shall be following it very closely because tomorrow it is said, I don't know if it's tonight, but it's most likely tomorrow morning, there shall be a special session that shall be held. Maybe they might pick up, choose a new deputy president. But all of you that are watching, please take one moment, and all of you, and I mean all of you, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Subscribe. It's free. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, and not only that, put your notification on because we shall be covering all this from the top down, top, west, east, west, all of it, which everything we shall discuss here. I shall bring a panelist to come speak on this issue because this is something that we are very, very, very keen to see what happened. Now, Stanley Gacheru is saying something very important that I've mentioned. I said it before that there's a lot of violations that happened during these proceedings, and that is what might lead the court to overturn this impeachment. Article 145 and also the question of whether the threshold of Article 150 was there enough evidence to constitute a gross violation, gross misconduct conducted by Rigathi Gachagua that made him that qualifies him to be impeached. I think Mr. Mutuse did not qualify that, did not substantiate his claims, as you saw. And this whole argument by Orengo and Otiende Amolo saying that, oh, you don't need evidence at this stage. May I remind him that actually the impeachment proceeding at the Senate level is quasi-judicial, meaning, yes, they will kind of have a judicious activity there. They shall find out. They have to investigate and see if these claims, whether Gachagua was a bully or Gachagua was, money laundering or whatever the case is, they have to investigate and substantiate those claims with evidence that might qualify it to have him be removed from office. So I think when this thing goes to the courts, it will fail flat on its face. So I won't be surprised. If I am regarding Gachagua, I shouldn't be worried. Just sit there with their lawyers. And I think this was a setup because he knew there were so many people who were gung-ho on seeing him being impeached. So he played that trick by being sick. Maybe he was sick for real. But the fact that they went on with the proceedings and voting, they did not afford him the right to present himself physically and also represent himself at the Senate, which is required under Article 145. That is, they denied him the right for him to present himself and defend himself physically at the Senate, as the Article 145 of the Kenyan 2010 Constitution stipulates. So that's a gross violation of the Constitution by the Senate, okay? They should have just held it longer and waited to see if the conditions, the health, regarding health, will get better so that they can bring him in at the Senate and ask him questions and cross-examine him. But they did not wait, and I think Gachagua knew this. So he will use that, and he will use that in court, and that will actually have everything overturned, unless these people who had these claims, 11 claims, can bring hard evidence at the courts, then I don't see these things surviving. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and communities, please go ahead and subscribe. All of you subscribe to this channel, all of you, and like the video, because we shall be going in on this issue. Let me read this by Stanley Gicheru, who says, the court role is seminal. Parliament have failed in many occasions. Their conduct is subject to review. Impeachment process is not as serious case, or I don't know, serious case. Is that what you're saying? The doctrine of tria politica must be objective. Sui generis, that's what he say. Sui generis, I think it's a Latin word. There he's using the doctrine of tria politica must be objective. Okay, basically, tria politica trial of politics, political trial must be objective. So yes, Stanley makes a good point. Rosa M says Martha Koome's court will not save Gachagua. His goose is cooked. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Because Justice Mwita has always have a history of standing with the Constitution. I don't put much trust in Koome because that might go the other way. But all in all, we shall see what will transpire as things unfold. Please, 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 I beseech you, I impugn you, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. So next time we shall come in and discuss this issue, I want you to be present. We'll be covering everything that's concerning what's unraveling. I will be curious to see how the people of Mount Kenya shall be reacting to the news tonight regarding the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. I think this news may spark maandamano this weekend. I think so. This will not go down well with a lot of people in Central Province. We're here to see. We'll wait to see and see what really happens at the mountain. It's only not Mount Kenya region. It is the whole Kenya. We'll see what happens then. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I tell you, take this opportunity to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Please, 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 because the next few days, we have to cover these things. These are issues of national importance, and it is important that you are part of the conversation so we can break down what is happening in this great nation. Do not miss. So subscribe, share, like, comment, do all the good stuff as we continue. Now, let's get to the next. Let's get to the next issue. Let's get to the next issue as we continue to cover what's happening, the reactions from these places. And if you are wondering, on the 20th of this month, which is on Sunday, we shall be having a commemoration where we'll be remembering the folks that died, Mashujaa Day at Uhuru Park. So if you are anywhere around Kenya, please let's meet at Uhuru Park. That's where the action shall be. So please, 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 do not hesitate. Book a ticket if you haven't booked yet. Tunakutana Mashujaa Day at Uhuru Park. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, it's been a pleasure. I will stop here. We shall meet up tomorrow again early in the morning and discuss what's going on. Again, Rosa is saying, I don't care why people are angry. All of us need to be angry at the same time to remove Ruto. Absolutely. So tomorrow, let's meet up here again. In order to find me live for a live session, please make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It's free. Like the video, put your notification on, and share it in your WhatsApp groups and every group that you're involved in. So next time, you can know about the channel and you can have an opportunity to be part of this great discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kenya Revolutionary. This channel is all about Kenyan politics. I'll meet you tomorrow when the so-called special session in Parliament will be held. Maybe to nominate the new deputy president. I don't know, but we shall find out. We shall talk about that and we shall cover it tomorrow. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and I'll see you tomorrow. Again, if you're going to watch this on repeat, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and I will see you tomorrow. Ama namna gani? Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace and blessings. Be safe.